On June 21st, 2026, Ottawa's former Poet Laureate Jamaal Amir Akbari will bring his debut poetry collection, Chambers, to life in a unique live performance at the Richcraft Theatre inside the Shenkman Arts Center. More than a book launch, Chambers is an immersive artistic experience that blends poetry, music, spoken word, and movement to explore themes of identity, transformation, and self-discovery. Joined by special guests Apollo the Child, Abina Beloved Green, Amanda Lo Warnakula Shuria, and Miss Tika, Jamaal invites audiences into an afternoon of storytelling, creativity, and community. Almost a decade ago, Garmami sat down with Jamaal for an interview at a very different point in his creative journey. Since then, he's continued to evolve as an artist and now releases his first poetry collection. In this conversation, they explore identity, reinvention, fatherhood, creativity, and the cost of personal growth. If you'd like to attend Chambers, you'll find a link to the event and ticket information in this episode's show description. Now, here's the Strictly Creative conversation with Jamaal Amir Akbari.
Creativity is my pulse, right? And so that's my secret, stay connected to creativity. And so even though 10 years has passed, like that's the only game I've been playing in those last 10 years. And so a lot can happen. You know, it's when you realize after that time passes, you realize that's how much I could have accomplished if I didn't step back from my goals. When time goes by and you're like, wow, in 10 years, what could I have done if I didn't step back? So because I'm conscious of that, my bad, I keep my finger on my pulse, man. Yeah.
When you say step back, what do you mean by that?
Like maybe switch directions. And that happens, you know, in life sometimes. But with art, and if you know you're an artist and that's your passion, you know you're a creative, sometimes it can be the most detrimental thing, taking your finger off the pulse of creativity. Because then other inspirations come that take you way off the path. And life is a way that if you get involved in something, it's not always your choice when you can jump out of it. Sometimes you're like stuck with it for another 2 years. You start a business, this, that, right? And then your mindset changes. So it's focus, man. It's just, yeah.
You know, just before I hit record, we were just talking about, I was mentioning about how the last time I spoke with you and interviewed you was about a decade ago, 2016 plus a month or maybe two months ago. It's been a while. And, you know, obviously, I want to interview you in regards to your event, your book launch on the 21st. But the first question is, a lot has changed in a decade. And I know your novel speaks about transformation. And I can tell that, you know, I mean, you could look at me, you could tell a lot's changed in the last decade. Yeah. Same here. And I wanted to ask you, like, how have you transformed in the last decade? If we can break the ice with that one.
Oh, great.
Do take your time, please.
Yeah. How have I transformed? I've become more in touch with my emotions.
Wow.
I understand where my emotions come from, like the type of emotional being I am. I have a type, a way, and I understand where they come from now. So I understand when certain emotions are rising in me, the origins of why certain emotions would arise in me. And that's come from being a father of 8 now.
Wow, 8. Yes. A decade ago, it was 4.
Yeah. Right. So being a father of 8 and having sort of a compass for my family that I've brought to them, a plan for my family. I've had to now see how my children and my family can fit into this plan with the type of people they are. And because of that, I've had to become a coach that understands emotions, because I realized that my children are their own emotional beings. So I had to now really tap into, like, what does it mean to allow for various emotions to just be at play in the human experience? Because I think that's where oftentimes people get upset with each other. It's when people do not handle each other's emotions, right? So I become a person who recognizes where my emotional field was born and I can like speak to myself whenever certain emotions that don't serve me well, when they arise, I can speak to myself and let them settle down and find a space. Sorry, I'm trying to take off my things on my phone here. So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with me. I didn't know that I navigated such a wide emotional field like that. I knew within the art world I could do that, and I enjoyed doing it, but I didn't know as a human I could do that. So that's one. Second thing is I'm more concerned with what I'm here for. I'm less concerned with what I'm not here for.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just not.
You're talking about purpose.
Yes. I always knew I had a purpose since I was small, really small, and I knew what it was too. But I think for a large part of my life, I was grabbing at whatever would even come close to what smelt like that purpose, because as an Afro-Caribbean person, not having much, there's this thing like where when you grow up in certain environments and you don't have a lot, even when your parents tell you like taking things that's not yours is wrong, even when you know this, you get this thief mentality. Like, if no one is watching that, I take that bag, This is how it is in certain environments, Oh, that bike is abandoned. That bike is mine if it's here tomorrow. What I did was I was never a thief, but I theft anything that resembled like ideas, you know what I mean? Or attitudes. I was like, is this close to my purpose? But then I realized I got to trim away a lot of that. I was grabbing onto things like, especially within the colonial system, that wasn't aligned with my purpose. In the colonial system, it's easy, institution. I got to have university degrees. I was grabbing on those type of things, not like taking things that aren't mine, right? But those aren't mine. The idea of having a doctor's in university, that's not mine. It's not my idea. It's not my purpose. It's not my dream. So I was grabbing onto things that were part of my path. So now I know what to let go, because I'm not afraid anymore. So yeah, when you're not afraid anymore, the fall to zero, it's really just coming back to more of who you are. You realize this.
You're talking and I'm looking right into your eyes, and pardon me, I just had some coffee, and I mean, I can tell you are the calmest I've ever seen you. You seem like inside, in your eyes, you seem very calm. You seem very grounded, and that's like that's what I'm perceiving. But I will say that's like a blessing beyond blessings from what I'm sensing and from what I'm seeing. And I know that, like, as a creative person who's gone through various creative, you've gone through quite a journey and a transformation as an artist, right? Because as I mentioned before we started this interview, I went back to our interview from 2016, and you have quite an interesting trajectory in the arts. In fact, but not just, one art form, many art forms mixed together, always creating, always giving to the community in terms of performance, in terms of arts education, this, that, and the other. And I guess where I'm heading at is, you now have a book, you've authored a book, and it explores identity and self-discovery. What were you trying to understand about yourself while writing this book? And tell us the name of the book. Obviously, in this interview, when I do the intro, I'm going to be plugging the event on the 21st. I'm looking forward to attending and watching it. But take us through the emotions, if you don't mind, of what you were trying to understand about yourself while writing this book. And it's called Chambers, right?
Chambers, yes. I was trying to discover if I could survive what I need to face to get where I'm supposed to be.
Aren't you there?
I'm on my way, so I'm not off. I'm just still in motion towards it. So I'm still on my destination where I'm supposed to be, and I know that there are going to be challenges that are going to take my breath away. I mean, like, either inwardly they may feel like I should give up, take my breath away, metaphorically speaking, or sometimes I feel like I just don't want to continue anymore because they're that difficult, some of these challenges. So this book was opening up some of those challenges I've had to face, that I've dealt with. Like I went through the experience of these challenges, but I felt like writing about it and letting people read about them, for me, was the way to not let these challenges mess with my destination anymore. Because sometimes, like I said, I feel in my head, I'm like, is there a point to try to keep on this path? To try to I engage. I was going to say fight, but I don't necessarily fight anymore because I don't take what's not mine. But to engage in this way that many people don't seem to care about, and you're doing it for people, is it worth it? And so, although I'm a performing artist and I write, all of my work starts from writing. I'm a writer. Producing a physical book was something I thought, when I retire, because I'm a stage artist. And I produce my work not in physical books. I produce them on stage in front of an audience, right? As a performance artist. But then I realized for my people, the Afro-Caribbean community, my specific community, spiritual Afro-Caribbean community, but also like people who know me in different communities here in Ottawa, I think they need to read. I want them to read, in fact. I want them, so when they see me, I want them to know me. I want them to know it's just not a performance. I'm not performing for you here. And I started to realize I could do this until I'm 80, but I think I might just go down as the performer, the entertainer, when that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to entertain. So the book was for the reality that looks at me, reality how it allows me in this world. It was for reality to read my script, human beings in a sense, right? To read this script of mine, this life path of mine, and take bits of it, but also the lessons that I've learned from this life path of what it means to face what you know you're here to face, but certain things challenge you and doubts, fears and so on. And I know that that's a human thing people can relate to. I got to get somewhere. It's an uphill battle. But how do I not lose faith and hope? That's what this book is about. Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, can you tell us one of these challenges and put it in context for us? And in addition to that, provide one lesson learned or one takeaway from your experience, obviously.
Yes. I did tell myself, I know you as an interviewer. I've known you somewhat outside of the scope of your amazing interviews. And I said, I got to give Garmami the truth the truth.
Only if you want to, man. I mean, like I do want to read your book, so you don't have to give it all away. But put it in context, because from what you've said already from the beginning, it sounds like you're really putting your soul in a very transparent way. You're giving people your soul and your story in a very transparent, naked way. You know what I mean? And that's very, I mean, you can call it brave because that's what it is. But for you, it sounds like it's a constant struggle to be on your creative path and your purpose and your journey. But we want to hear, like, give us one example of these challenges, if you don't mind me asking.
So the biggest challenge that I face is the concern that I carry for my community. And I realized in certain communities, not talking about issues is like one of the ways we continue generational problems and trauma. We just don't talk about them. We don't come together and sit down as families and say, what's going on, but we'll complain about them in separate private spaces, but we won't come together and collectively try to address it. And so it's caused a lot of fragmentation in the community that I love, and it's hampered our growth and development. And sovereignty is something Black African Caribbeans it's something we understand we're supposed to get back. Our sovereignty, our plans we had for our destiny, right? Shaping it, nurturing it, owning our destiny. And that because of the fragmentation in the community, we haven't been able to get places collectively. Individually, some of us have graduated, gone to post-secondary, and that was important for them. Some of us have careers, families, but collectively, we're spinning. We're in a spiral. And the spiral is not a good one. It's a downward spiral, in my personal opinion. So having to be the one that speaks truth, to bring up these things, even when nobody wants to, I sometimes feel like I'm the problem. Not the problem child, but I'm like the problem. I disturb the piece of what people don't want to address themselves or their issues. But I'm like, every time I'm a problem now, because I bring it up respectfully, and I say, I'm not going to be entertaining gatherings when we have trauma, when we have people who are teenagers who are homeless in our families, when we have substance abuse. So for me, the biggest thing is like the woes of my people. People are homeless, have substance abuse issues. We have parental issues. And to me, it seems like we're okay as long as we can break bread together. It's not enough for me. I've seen the narratives that happen when people don't own their destiny, reclaim it. I see what societies will shape your life like. And for me, I had to address it in this book. So I'm hoping family members read it. And it's risky because I say things in these books that I know family will be like, or community will be like, yo, why is Jamaal talking about this? You know, if I was a millionaire and there was a documentary about me, because it happens to the millionaire artists, the big ones who become famous, they lay their stories out. We want to know about famous artists who are wealthy and rich. We want to know what struggles they've overcome. But when I always felt, I'm that boy. If I went and talked about problems when I was 12 years old to the elders, they'd shoo me out the room. Don't bring that up. No, you're too young to talk about these things. But I could see them from a young age that these things are going to perpetuate and continue. So that's like one of the things I face. But other things too. People don't understand what I grew up without my mother, and as an Afro-Caribbean man, a male, like I started to understand again the origins of my emotions. I started to really peel back the layers. What's like not growing up without a mother, what you could lose from not having that energy in your life. And I addressed some of those things too, which are big things for me.
Obviously, addressing and speaking about these issues within this broad community could there's probably a concern for how some may react to it, as you mentioned, within your own family. But is the intent to heal through conversation? Is the intent to educate? Is the intent what is the goal? Because you're smart enough to know, as you mentioned, within even within a family, within a family alone, right? There's always tension, and you're being proactive in terms of, from what it sounds to me, addressing this, because everyone can relate to what you're saying, I believe. And any human being who comes from a family, we all come, what I'm saying? Like we all see what you speak of. And so obviously it's gonna ruffle some feathers, but what is the intent of this as you said before, disturbing the peace?
It's to heal. But you can't heal what you don't accept. And so it's to really reveal the truth first, because, humans can recognize that sometimes we lie to ourselves, right? By avoiding the true nature of what's happening, right? We create these stories, or, we rationalize things to the point where it's not even reasonable anymore to behave that way, but we'll still behave that way. Like, for example, we all know we should sleep a long enough time because it makes us feel better. We feel great. We're healthy, but we play with that, right? Play with that every other night. We're playing with that important part of our existence, sleep, right? So I've noticed that there are underlying things that my community, takes lightly. And I know we could heal, but first it's going to hurt. The truth is a hard pill to swallow. So just like going to therapy, right? And I'm not a professional therapist, but we know eventually there's going to be a space of you're going to be uncomfortable. And we also know that from a scientific standpoint, if you want to get better at something, which is addressing your behavior patterns, then you have to put your space in a growth space, and growth spaces are uncomfortable spaces. So the healing is my goal, but I know that how I do it is I'm gonna just talk truth. I'm not gonna be rude about it, raise my voice, but you're gonna know that I'm gonna shoot straight. And I had to, over the last 3-4 years, my families have started to see this difference in me. It's like, and I could tell sometimes they're uncomfortable because they know, if Jamaal comes, it's going to be arrows flying everywhere because he's shooting. But it's the only way. I got to shake things up a bit. And with Chambers, with this other book, I have 2 books that I'm launching on the same day, Brave to Be. I'm starting to realize as a poet, as an artist, I should not walk around fearing that my language and my words and how they shake things up is like a problem. I shouldn't fear this. I need to be the person I need to use my alchemy in this way. This is how I'm set to use my alchemy. And yes, what it's done is ostracize me. Even in artistic scenes, it's ostracized me because I'm not here for it. I've seen people die because of taking things lightly. I don't want to live life anymore with my family members dying because we just sat and took things lightly. My community members who I love dying. So if no one's going to do it, I'm going to do it. And with the goal, though, of healing.
It's such a major theme, healing, and some people are ready for it. Some people will never be ready for it, right? And they'll be, whether they'll deny the truth or one's perspective of the truth and their experience. There's always going to be that in any dynamic, in any community. And the community you speak of is a big one, the Afro-Caribbean community, because it's so many different cultures, different languages, different faiths, different perspectives. But I think it's from how I'm interpreting what you're saying, and from what I know about, as a grown-ass man in my life, and from what I've seen, I'm actually really excited for this performance, not a performance, sorry, for this event on the this presentation on the 21st, because it's brave, and it's I think it may motivate some to address some issues within their own bubbles, with their own families.
I hope so. I mean, we all love it when we see somebody doing better, when we see someone that's close to us, and we see that they're doing better now, So I just want to see more people doing better. To be honest, life becomes a difficult experience when the people you meet week to week, and you can almost see the life being sucked out of them because of failures or difficulties. That's had a grip on me for too long. So I've talked to my inner bigger self many times. Why do I feel like I have the right or authority to even go and talk this type of truth? But like I said, what I say to my children, I say, last minute vibes don't save many lives. You know what I mean? If the boat is drowning, if the boat is, sinking, if you're on a ship and it's sinking, if you act last minute, a lot of people are going to die. You need the person who's going to be right there, ready to do what's necessary to keep that boat afloat for the next 10, 15 minutes, because more lives can be saved the longer it can stay afloat. So I've accepted to be that guy. I just don't talk as much now. I'll do interviews, you know what I mean? I'll talk if it's about truth, but I'm not outside as much. I'm not outside at the shows, events, and it's not because I'm not supporting the different scenes and communities. It's just because I know now how I'm supposed to impact the community, and it's supposed to be behind the scenes, in a sense. Behind the scenes. It's one of the reasons why I wrote the book. Now people can take some of who I am as a creative, and I don't have to be there with them anymore. As a performing artist and a full-time performing artist, my entire salary, my whole family is fed off of my art.
That's amazing.
Constantly working, performing, moving around in front of people, sharpening, refining myself. I have to eat a certain way. I have to sleep a certain way. I have to wake up. I have to be like Shea Gilgis Alexander out here. Everything must be consistent as a performance artist. But now, with content that people could take home with them. I don't have to be the present coach anymore, convincing people of what I do. They could take it and ponder and reflect, and hopefully, like you said, take something away from it.
Remind me to ask you, in case I forget, I want to follow up, and if you don't mind, play the devil's advocate on, just to challenge you a little bit, and I hope you don't kill me. No, man. but what I wanted to ask was, actually, in fact, 10 years ago when I spoke with you, one of the things you mentioned was at the, I think, near the end of our interview, or one of the key points you had mentioned was that as a creative, I asked you, where do you see yourself a decade from now, or something to that effect, I believe. And you said you wanted to be, I'm paraphrasing here, paraphrasing, but basically to sum it up, you're basically saying you wanted to be creatively like independent as a creator, to have to own your ability to do art and to be free, and to be almost like echoing where it's as if you were foreshadowing where you are now. I'm not trying to dramatize it, but if you go back, and people, please go back and listen to the interview. I'll provide the link in the description, of course. But you were saying, you were echoing that. You were talking about autonomy and independence creatively, and not having to feel like you're under someone's operational budget. You know what I mean? You were talking about that. Which is interesting to hear you say, what you're saying now, because it's as if I think you are there now, right?
Thanks for bringing that up. That is my mission. To be an example, to be the blueprint for those who are trying to live free. There are certain things I'm still figuring out, because when we talk about free, you're living under a government when you live in a society, right? And you're governed. So of course you still have to abide by rules and such, right? But I've navigated spaces now, but from owning buildings, right, to homes, to land, and seeing what the red tape is like, to be how, for example, CRA looks at you if you're a professional full-time artist, how they will come at you for taxes if you're living a performance artist life. And in the last 10 years, from right when we did our interview, I was actually gearing up to purchase my first home outside the city, to do phase 1 of what it's like to live away from the city on some land, but have a creative ecosystem there. So phase 1 is complete now, and I know what it's like to live on a smaller piece of land with a creative ecosystem going on, but it's only enough to sustain my family and I. My goal is not to create a blueprint to sustain just my family and I. It's to show you pass on a blueprint to the next person who wants to create something larger for a community, for example. So the next step is to get more land and take the ideas that I have and just multiply them now, make them larger, because I know that they work on a larger scale, because I've already operated them at larger scales internationally. Then I wanted to try them on my own on a small scale, and now I can grow them bigger, but it doesn't have to be international. It could be local, it could be regional, and if international it goes, then international it goes. But yes, freedom. So what does that mean? Your entire, everything, your food, your lifestyle. It's based off of when you wake up, you could talk what you want to talk, when you want to talk, how you want to talk, all the way till you go to sleep. And I do have that life now. It's interesting, just a couple of days ago, I was speaking to my producer. I said, where I came from to where I am now, every day I get to wake up and talk about art. I feel like like someone who sells art. I hustle art. And where I came from, I could have been hustling women, drugs, hustling black brothers, bodies, sending them on the pipeline to prison. So to be able to talk art and freedom, literally, with my children, my wife, and all of my peers and people I work with, I'm almost there. I'm on that path. And I know now it's possible. So now I want to be able to sharpen it, perfect it in a sense, so that there's less issues. And then when it's ready, I could say, I have a design. Here, my people, I have a design. I can make you skip years now. You don't have to take 10 years to get here. Here's 3 years, follow it, free. You're working for yourself. You're working from home. You're not running to a job and coming home at 6 o'clock to see your children, to talk to them for an hour, to put them to bed, to do it for 5 days a week. That's not free to me. To me, it's not free. So, yeah.
So, by the way, that's incredible that you've attained that freedom, that independence, and that autonomy, and that you're strictly focused on your art and your creativity. I think that's what you just said to me sounds, when I hear it, I'm just like, you're living the dream, bro. You know what I mean? Like, you're living the dream. And in addition to that, I mean, you have 8 kids, which is amazing, you know? Devil's advocate, and I hate that term because, well, it's the devil. So, but, you know, but you get the expression and all that. So what I'm hearing is someone who's challenged themselves, evolved, absorbed a lot, addressed many challenges, emotional challenges, trauma, if I can say that, and you've made something of yourself. And here's where the devil's advocate bit comes in. There are some battles that, or not battles, but there are some challenges that, as much as, like, so some people in your circle, I'm going to assume, maybe they're not ready for their own challenges. And as much as you may care and love them, and I say this respectfully, maybe you stick to your formula of success and you keep building, and, you know, you keep showing, and maybe they will come to their own realization. Because sometimes, and this is me through my own running into the wall, without getting too much into it, we can, but, you know, some people, it's as much as you may care and love them, and if it's family, if it's friends, if it's whatever, some people you just cannot convince or motivate, you know? It has to come from intrinsically for them. So I guess what I'm saying is, do you think it is worth the effort? And I say this respectfully because I don't know the full scope and context of what you speak of, because I know the broader issue is this community that you love, and I respect that. But and I'm a complete stranger saying this when I say this, but, you know, like, don't you think you may have done more than enough for your own, you know? Like, do you know what I mean? And you know, I'm here as the interviewer. I'm not, it's nothing personal. I'm just asking, you know, like, don't you think, like, there comes a point where you're like, if I go beyond this, there's the cost benefit analysis in terms of emotional and spiritual energy and all that. It's just going to cost me too much.
Yeah, that's thank you for that question. And I feel like you have experience with this. Trying, making attempts, trying to be the reason in the room.
It's painful.
Yeah. That was probably the biggest growing up I had to do. Because, yeah, it's almost like that's how I was being punched back. You know what I mean? That's what hurts me the most in all of this. When you realize, oh man, I have a way of thinking that's pretty reasonable, and it saved me. Like, I'm not everything that I want is happening immediately, but I found a way to think through this life that's not going to make me die before my time. How can I bring this way of thinking to others, and maybe they can glean something from it so they don't die before their time? And then after realizing, after a while, like, people are rejecting it, ridiculing me, you know, all of a sudden I'm a bad guy, you know, these narratives start happening, and I start to realize, okay, or some people just think, leave me alone, you know, whatever you're serving, I don't want it. after years, like over 30 years of trying, I had some serious conversation with myself. Okay, Jamaal, do I give up on these people? And I realized for me, no matter what, I can't. I need to find peace with continuing to serve people. I need to humble myself. Sometimes I do take some time for myself, though, to re-energize, to get back to that place where I'm serving again, even though I know I'm going to get disrespected. People don't care. People are just going to ridicule the idea of growth. Even though I know sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a little retreat, then I'll go back with more fervor, because culture is a thing. Culture is not just an ideal or a concept. It's a real biological thing, culture. When you have a community, their culture, your community affects you. They affect you. Your nephews, your nieces, your aunties, your uncles, your elders, the newborns, they all affect the trajectory of your life. You know, even if you try to ignore it or run from it, is what I realized. The times when I tried to ignore what was going on, say, you know what, Jamaal, you're good at focusing on you. You don't have to be nobody. You're not anybody's savior anyways. You're good. When I tried to do that, I couldn't still let go of the feeling that when I saw like a sister from the community and she's struggling, what can I do for her? How can I help her? How can I let her know that you don't have to keep living this way? So I've come close to being like, you know what, left it. But what I did realize is keep doing what you're doing. And when you get to that destination, some people will join you on the way there, and a lot of them, the ones, in fact, that you really want, they're probably going to join you right at the end. And that's okay. Because they were the ones that were hurt the most, probably.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So I'm not going to give up. But I did give up on, like, in the moment, if I realize it's not helping or it doesn't look like it's working, I have faith it's going to work. You have to keep trying. When you're a leader and you've accepted, everybody looks at you as the leader. And I actually call myself a leader now. I know some leaders say, I'm not a leader. No, I'm a leader. No one else is. So I'm giving myself the title. And people expected that of me anyways. Jamaal will do it. So when I put myself in this role, a leader doesn't abandon the ship. They just don't. Now, anybody who's a fool, you don't partake with the fools, because you have a mission, and fools can, you try to save someone who's drowning and they're thrashing, they'll drown you too type thing. Yeah, you have to save yourself first, but I can't abandon. And so I've just found a way now. It's like, okay, I'm not abandoning you. I'm giving you distance. But whenever you're ready to come on this, the door's open. That's how I kind of deal with it now. Yeah.
Man, it's there's so much we could keep talking about when it comes to some of these themes here, and I have a set of questions that I want to get back to, but it's all it's all relevant, of course, because the next question I wanted to ask is, how has being a father shaped the artist you've become? And again, please take your time, like, you know what I mean, like it's
So when you become a father, your job is not done. You're a father for the rest of your life. You become an eternal caregiver now. Because as long as that child is alive, even if they're an adult, you have to be a space where that adult can look to you as a comfort space, hopefully as a space of support. Let's just put it this way, right? So even if my child's 40 years old, I'd hope that they could think that I'm a person of support for them in their life, because we go through difficulties no matter what age we are. So I'll be a father until I pass away, Jah willing. And what I've realized is that long-term game now that I'm on, of being a father all the way until I pass away, it's a long-term effort, right? A long-term effort. Now I realize my life artistically can be like this too. Pace it. It can be paced. It's a long-term effort. I used to think, Jamaal, you're a poet, but you don't have books out. What's taking you so long? You're a rapper. You don't have any albums. I have singles out, like music out, singles out. I have, I've been, published in anthologies and such, but you don't have your own collection of poems yet in a book, and you don't have your own album of collected works. But you make music, you write poetry, you perform, people have published you. Are you behind on your journey? Why? All your peers, a lot of them younger than you, because when I came into the scene, Actually, yeah, my peers were younger. I was already a dad, nearing my 30s, and a lot of the poets that I was sharing work with, they were in their 20s in university. You were one of my elders because I know you were running, holding down the scene prior to me. But so I always used to think I'm off in my timing and will I accomplish these things before I leave this plane. But then I realized if parenting is an eternal effort, as long as I have life and I have to parent, and so is my art. I have to parent my art too. That inside of me that wants to express my spirit artistically, it's a lifelong journey. There's no timeline. So I'm gonna get these books complete when my life as a human allows the right time for it. I'm gonna get this album complete when my life as a human. And this is one of the reasons I talk about freedom, because so many stories don't make you believe that you could still be a rapper and put out a rap album and live off of it at 40. Which story is this? We don't hear it. So the idea of freedom is creating stories that other people who might be thinking it won't work, you've now created a story and it's like, it does work. It does work. So many people need this in their 40s, in their 30s. They need to realize I could still manufacture the life that I want, even though all the ways North America says you're supposed to have hit certain milestones. So for me, that's what being a father has taught me. Like, I love the fact that I can be an artist all the way until I pass away, because now I have something to pour myself into. I love that I have 8 children. I'm going to be a father. My youngest is 2. I realize I'm going to be 60 and she'll be 16 or something like this. That's wild to me. But no, she'll be 18 when I'm 60. So I'll be still parenting, supporting someone in their getting into their adult phase when I'm 60 years old, which is close to what we consider senior citizen. But that's something for me to pour into. So it's just like I made certain promises with my family. I said, by the time certain children reach this, I'll have these things done. And when I realized certain things were off timing, I'm like, yeah, but you know what, Jamaal? Parenting is, you can't, what are you going to do? You going to stop parenting next year, 5 years from now? No, it's a lifelong effort. And so too, you are a lifelong effort. So I'm actually giving myself a lot more care. Whereas before there was so much pressure. Oh man, our people, we take pressure as a sense of pride, but we don't know when we can let go of some pressures. You don't need to carry that pressure. It's not necessary. So I've let go of the pressure of feeling like I need to be a complete human being at a certain time or milestone I've achieved in my life, because as a parent, it doesn't work that way to be a perfect parent or complete, or you've done all the right things as a parent. And, being a dad taught me that.
Yeah. It's incredible. First of all, I really like the lifelong, you reference parenting as a lifelong effort. I've never heard that before. That's really cool, man. That's fascinating. Because in this, I'm generalizing here, but in this society, we tend to measure, usually it's like, oh, by the time they're 18,
let them fly, right? Fly the coop, kick them out. I'm done with you. No, I'm a father. What happens when my daughters if they're married and they need me? I want to be the same parent. Not I'll change a bit, right? They'll mature, but I want to be the same. Like, I'm here. I'm here to say, if you're going somewhere and you need me to say, watch out, I'm here. So, yeah.
Man, your kids are very lucky to have you, man. As that's incredible. Because, like, I know too many people who didn't have whose parents kind of stopped parenting them before they even turned 18, and people had to parent themselves.
Grow up too young, right? Were you like that?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you don't realize. I think I'll say this, for me, I didn't realize what I know now until I became a parent, and I kind of thought about my childhood and my upbringing, and it's and I don't. I think it's given me a different perspective on my own parents, to be upfront, I was mainly raised by my mom, so I didn't really have a dad in the picture, and it's interesting now being a dad and trying to understand what a good father is. You know, I mean, we can, there's a lot of information out there as to what a good father is, and we can inform ourselves, educate ourselves on it. But, you know, when you say long-term effort, I'm like, wow, I've never heard of that before, because I've only ever heard of, I mean, I've spoken to grandparents and who have children who are in their 20s or 30s and 40s and so on. They're still, you know, they still make an effort to be involved and be part of the, which I think is amazing, which I think is a blessing. But yeah, over here you tend to hear, oh, by the time they're 18, you know, move on, and some folks, you know, they're parenting themselves at a very, very young age, and it is what it is. But you know, the title Chambers, why that title, and what chambers of your life was the hardest to open?
So chambers represents a few things. The chambers of the heart, right? And the heart being who I am, my spirit, the spirit of Jamaal. So, but I also used it because as a hip hop artist, 36 Chambers, Wu-Tang Clan, and they had a philosophy, right? Their philosophy was grounded in spiritual ideology. But for them, they drew from the martial arts world and Kung Fu. For me, the chambers, I drew from Rumi, the poet Rumi, yes, and how he is the poet known for speaking about matters of the heart, matters that concern you, the innermost parts of who you are, the identity of who you are, and your trajectory based on that identity. So it's kind of like when I chose Chambers, I wanted to pay an homage to hip-hop, to Wu-Tang, so that the audience hopefully knows, or the reader knows, that this is an artist who writes in a way that the sound, if you pay attention to the spoken word, right, there is a rhythm and patterns there when it is spoken. It's not just page poetry where the patterns can be kind of made up on your own. There's a way to approach this, and call and response, patterning, hip hop cadence. That's inside of the language of Chambers. I split it into 36 poems because 36 chambers, again, hip hop, 6 poems per chamber. The chambers, instead of calling them chapters, I call them chambers. Each chapter is a chamber, and it represents a certain area of my life. The most difficult part was writing about my faults. I think a lot of artists try to sneak in the not so good sides about themselves into their work, because it's a way of letting go of the imperfectness of who you are, the imperfection of who you are. So I've done that. I used to, sometimes when I write, I try to write my faults in there, things I've done to people, things I've done to my harm that I've left behind, and dealing with that. That's been the most difficult, writing about my bad behavior, owning up to that. I can own up to it actually, but writing about it and letting it sit there for other people to read, you know, it's it was putting myself in check. So that was the first part. I'm gonna call out certain things in the community in my writing, but can I call myself out too and be honest with who I am in my good and bad? And I did that. That was the first. The second thing was writing about my childhood, because, well, I mean, if you grow up problematic and people know it, or you grow up in a problematic childhood and your community knows it, they don't want you to talk about it. It's hush. That's hush material. You know what I mean? And I was like, nah, my mother wants me. I'm not ashamed of my past. And the more I keep it hush, the more other people think they should be ashamed about talking about what they went through as a child. And I know just from doing my own therapy and stuff that what you don't reveal, you don't heal. So, yeah.
Aren't faults superpowers?
There's a devil's advocate.
But seriously though, like when you think of like anybody really. Like, yeah, no, nobody's perfect, but you know, their intent, their true heart, but you know, their faults can also. And I know I'm generalizing, and you know, faults are faults. They're not correct per se, but they can also, you know, they can ask for forgiveness. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Faults are superpowers in that they can draw out things that are beneficial. So let's say someone is a perfectionist and they try to score 10 for 10 at the free throw line. They score 9 for 10. They might go home that evening and work on their shot, right? So it's drawing out better refinement of the self. That's why faults are superpowers, because it helps humans to refine themselves. However, if you're amongst a bunch of people that don't enjoy the process of refining themselves, those faults are actually just gaps that will lead to bigger voids and problems. So as much as I think, yes, faults can be transformed, you know, problems, issues, that's what I did with my own entire life. All the things that I saw was a problem in my family and community, I said, I'm going to go straight on in these. And so that there's, when I've arrived, I say, what's left? What else do we need to tackle next? So I know that addressing faults can turn into a positive, or accepting faults or realizing we need faults. But I know that also if you sit too long and think, well, I got faults, so what? If you allow that to be who you are, think about it this way. The person who made this Zoom microphone, imagine they accepted low quality behavior from them and they went and made this, and then there's faults in it. You wouldn't want to buy this if they were behaving in a way where I'm forgetful sometimes when I put this machine together. So we know that people who accept faultiness, it's not the best example of what humans can be. You got to be able to address your faults and make yourself better. Otherwise, you wouldn't want to buy someone who makes your phone if they're always showing up late for work. They keep forgetting that small screw. They're forgetful. They don't want to take on new tasks. You won't want to buy that laptop, that coffee, if the person's, doesn't care how much sugar they put in, because they're like, I'm faulty, I'm neglectful. So faults are, in a way, once you realize you have faults, it's a problem when you start neglecting them. So, and then they're not a superpower. They're, what do they call it?
Liability.
A heavy liability.
You spent years creating for others to experience, right? And what has creativity taught you about yourself? Because even at the top of the interview, you said creativity was your pulse, right? So tell us, what has creativity taught you about you and is still teaching you about you?
It taught me that I think a lot of people who ended up leading, they had a way of thinking outside the box, and they probably were strange. They were strange. Like, they probably had things about their behavior that were just not the normal that's just not the normal. Like, in class, you were probably pensive, the one who thought a lot and was pensive, or maybe you were the one who were overthinker, or maybe anxious. I found creatives they're strange. Not some are very strange, maybe, and but they all have this thing about them. Even you have a thing about you. It's not the common way that you walk, right, and carry yourself. And I used to think that, am I a weirdo, for this? Like, am I off-putting to people? So I used to really judge myself, but then I realized this is my superpower, because I'm memorable. My idiosyncrasies, right? They impact people in very small ways. They're kind of almost like what I call invisible threads I leave in people, and I also feel that with other people. They leave that in me. So creativity made me realize, this is one of the ways that messages of change grow. And this is why, through society, creatives were the ones silently, right, squelched. Their ideas and their voices were squelched, because people will follow the creative mind, right? The creative mind it opens you up to joy. It makes you feel released from your tension, your problems. So imagine what that does to a society who's on the brink, the society that's just had too much now. All you need is that one voice, that one new Renaissance artist to come and change things. Before, I was very much afraid that if I really spoke my truth to this creative lens, I'm a dead man.
Really, eh?
If I get there, of course. They don't want. This is what history has shown. Speak too much truth through what I'm talented in. Like, for example, in the NBA, LeBron, speak too much truth, shut up and dribble, LeBron. Right? So for me, as a poet, speak too much truth and an artist who uses words, there could be issues. But what I've recently realized is you can't get it in. You can't have both. You're either going to speak and make the change, or create and make the change. You're creating. It's obviously change is part of that, right? Mm-hmm. That process, creating, you make change, or do nothing and no change happens. You can't have it both ways. You can't sit back and do nothing and then you're going to get the change you want, right? Obviously, makes sense, logic. So now I'm at the stage in my life where I'm willing to create in the way that people might be upset. But so what? It's the change we need.
Are these people you could be upsetting? How much value do they have? In by value, I mean, are they people who are contributing to problem solving? Are they just naysayers? Are they? How do you characterize them?
These people. Okay, so.
Sorry, say these people. You're right. I know. Sorry, folks.
Well, I know that in Canada, in North America, why is it that artists and athletes are not celebrated as compared to the rest of the world? Like, it's Canada. Why is athletics and artistic practice, those two, looked at as it's not viable? Those people are influencers. That's why. They can change the way people perceive how their life can function. And so, what was your question again? I usually don't forget the question. Did you ask something about change?
Naysayers. I meant.
Yes, the naysayers. Yes. Who are they? Yes. So for me, I feel like it's more of, it's not they. It's a system that's in place. It's a system of thinking. And I realize, the Moses story. The Moses story it symbolizes the idea that the elites, the people who run the people who govern society, your society, they're looking out for the little guy or woman, or they're paying. They know through history, it's the one who comes with a creative new approach to living that we gotta watch out for. They're probably not. It's not the wealthy technocrat. It's the one we can't swindle. We can't convince to change your way. When that person gets too many followers and listeners, the elite system is going to have a problem of maintaining its power structures. And so that's what they means. It's, for example, it's the red tape to own a business on your own piece of land. There's incredible red tape to run a homestead, which is something that I'm trying with the city to do, to start my homestead on land that I have. There's so much red tape. You practically want to give up before you get to the finish line. Why? And I realized this. Okay, well, why is it so hard? Well, during the pandemic, it was on. I turned on the news, and I rarely watch the news. From Toronto, one of these parliament politicians said the thing we're the most afraid of during COVID is the people who live in rural areas, because there's going to be against 20-minute cities or 5-minute cities. These 5-minute cities they want to build where everything is at your disposal in 5 minutes. Everything you can have. But they're afraid during COVID of people who live in rural communities, because those people don't want to change and live in an ecosystem of 5-minute cities. So when I realized there are structures that want things to stay the way certain people want it, those who are they are, because I don't want it this way anymore. I want to give a template of what it's like to be free, not enslaved to a 9-to-5. Like, when I realized as an artist, I can request what I want for my pay, and my pay now per hour is more than a doctor. Why are people still, be a doctor, we need doctors, but why are people still working jobs that they hate when they can start a business of their own? But again, there's a lot of gray area that people aren't given knowledge of. And so we're left with, it's either listen to what, everything that's being said, or try my own way and I'll never figure it out. So that's who they are. And that's who the naysayers are, oftentimes people who just want everything to stay nice and clean and tidy.
When you interact, so you've been in the creative community now, like as far as an artist goes, and a performer and a creator and an entrepreneur, like 25 years now, right? Since
myself?
Yeah, since you started. Was it 25 years?
I mean, privately, so I was doing a lot of stuff for spiritual communities before 2010. So about 5 years. So about 2005 is when I started. Yes, that's right.
So in that time, yeah, almost a quarter of a century to 25 years, yeah. So, in that time, you've come across many fellow creatives. And it's fair to say now that you could be mentoring some of them, right? What's it like when you interact with the quote unquote, like the new generation of poets, performance artists, and so on, MCs, producers, event promoters, etc. What's that like? And I ask as someone I'm very disconnected from the scene, particularly when it comes to poetry in Ottawa. I'm like so far removed. It doesn't mean that I don't consume poetry. I'm not. Of course, I'm always going to enjoy. I think everyone likes poetry in different ways. But like, paint that picture for us now, because it's fair to say you've been around and you've also endurance. You've endured like for quite some time.
Some different eras.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and it's
didn't last, and people didn't endure some of those eras.
People don't last. People have left. People have come and gone. But you're still there. You're still, and more importantly, you're still evolving. You know what I mean?
Yes. So, what I find really interesting about the newer generations of poets, singer-songwriters, performance artists, is that they're fast learners, right? They're fast learners, but with that I think they know that they're fast learners in a sense, because they can consume so much. So if I mentor a lot, and if I speak to a young artist and I give them a project to go work on, so that the next time we come together we can do some discussion, and usually they pick up what I'm trying to put down very fast, but they want to move ahead too fast, get to the next thing. And people talk about this a lot. It's when you're getting what you want too quickly. What's the term? There's a term that people use for it when you getting what you want.
Like peaking too early? No.
Yeah, it's like they want things too fast, right? To come too fast, like gratitude. There's a term for it people using. But anyways, they want everything to be so accessible, right? And so sometimes I think the young artists, what's interesting is I could see that they're geniuses, very smart, but they don't understand, even if you're a genius, there's a process to things, right? You don't just get from point A to point Z right away. So you have to, like, for example, finding your identity as a recording artist. Every real recording artist who's finally found their identity, they know that could take years to find your voice, your style, your sound. So the idea of experimenting and really like taking years to hone yourself, I find is what artists are missing. However, they are like super versions of us when we first started out. So they have way more skills in them, embedded in us, than when I first stepped on stage as a poet. But you give a young artist, young generation, 3 times to perform, and they want the championship medal at the end, after 3 times, instead of realizing it might actually, you need about 7 more years maybe, right? Before you get to the point where you can maybe be a part-time artist, right? So oftentimes young artists, they want to eventually make money, right? That's what they want. They want a lifestyle. And, they think, well, streaming, putting it up online. And when artists ask me that I'm mentoring, Jamaal, where can I find your stuff online? I say, I don't put my stuff to stream. I said, well, how do you make money? How are you a full-time artist? You don't stream. I say, this is where you're missing some of the things. A young artist might believe that streaming will gets them attention. You don't get no payment from the streaming. You got to perform. Are you getting booked as a performance artist? If you're not, well, let's go rehearse. Let's go do stage work, and then you can start getting booked more often. But they're like baby geniuses. They have so much like that you can train. It's almost getting prodigies, if you're an athlete. Yeah. They're all like prodigies, because I think young people are finding their avenue more, and because social media gives you what you want. They're just inundated with all what they want. They're picking up things that I don't even know. So one of the things I like about mentorship now is When I used to mentor, I felt like it was a dad role. I'm dad. Come on, let's go to piano class. Now in mentorship, I'm learning a lot from these the newer generation of artists, because they have new ways of doing things that I don't have, that can speed up my process in a good way, right, healthy way, or I can figure out how to do something that I didn't know before. So yeah, they're much more keen to want to move quickly, but sometimes it's at a detriment, because they think that, well, I can be where Jamaal is in 2 years. It it doesn't work. Like, again, endurance, you have to be tested and tried in the fire. You have to be. And so that's a interesting thing to be a part of this scenario right now.
Do you find, like, you know, as someone, obviously you're consuming music from everywhere, right? Is that fair?
Yes, I consume music from everywhere.
And do you find generationally, I don't want to sound like the angry old man when I say this, because I'm not, but at the same time, I'm like, oh wow, I do sound like, wow. Like, in terms of hip hop, like currently, like what are your thoughts on hip hop, current, contemporary, whether it's Canadian, American, European, blah blah blah, hip hop culture and music that's being produced? What are your thoughts on it right now?
Hip hop is a culture that people are attracted to, and for different reasons. Some people are attracted to it because of the money it can make. And now that it's in a space where it makes a lot of money, it generates a lot of money for a lot of businesses. Part of hip hop is not being protected because of that. But some people are out there, ambassadors, protecting this culture. I love where hip hop is, just because I know that when you create something, anything that comes into reality, once it's in reality, who knows where human beings are going to take it? Who can control billions of people taking art forms, 4 or 5 specific art forms? Who can control where that's going to go and how it's going to be used, and if it's going to be disrespected or not? Who can control this, right? It's very difficult. It's not like we have preachers, you know, in hip hop. And so, although
You got KRS-One.
yeah, you got KRS-One, right? The teacher, right? And we have some, you know, some other ambassadors, but you can't. So in this sense, I appreciate what hip hop is doing, has done. The things that I don't particularly like is how obviously corporations, right, benefit off of something that was made to create economic structures for my people. Hip hop was I think the main thing reality allowed it to exist was so it can create economic possibilities for my people. Now, that ability to give disadvantaged or disenfranchised communities possibilities to, you know, have lifestyles and income, now that that's been taken over by corporations, that message has disappeared, where it looks like it's purely entertainment, right? And if it's purely entertainment, who's going to make the most income from it? Those who control the entertainment industry, who have the biggest bidding, in the entertainment industry. So, you know, it's not comfortable to know that the culture has moved to the point where the majority of the dollars made from it supports, right, greed and corporative greed, right? But I still know that it's there for, my child can start tomorrow practicing it and reclaim some of it. It's ours always to go back and reclaim. So this is why I do it, because I can make a living off of it, and I get to tell positive messages through it. So I'm not the old dad. At one point, maybe like 12 years ago, I was like, yeah, I don't like where it's going. But now that I have my children growing up, they listen to hip hop, they put me onto young artists. I see that these young artists, they're trying to create opportunities for themselves. The only way they could do is signing a deal with okay, if that's the only way you could do it, at least now you can maybe purchase that row of homes you lived in the projects, you know what I mean? Or at least now you can put on another artist who can tour and something like that. So, yeah.
I guess one of the things I kind of failed to mention is I find, you know, hip hop's like maybe 50 years old now, or 40 or 50, right? And it's been around it has global influence and impact, as you mentioned. It's been corporatized, which is just, in the artistic world, that's almost inevitable to certain degrees. But where I'm getting at is, do you find for MCs and people involved in hip hop who are more experienced, more seasoned, who've been around for a while, older, I guess is what I'm saying, is there still a market for them? The reason why I asked that, we're at the NAC right now, for example. If you want to go see a jazz performer, you'll see, you go show up, you go watch a jazz performance. Chances are maybe the artist is in their 40s, in their 50s, 60s and so on. Rock and roll, you go to a rock and roll concert. Some of these artists are much older too. And so on. And where I'm getting at is with hip hop. Like, I went to go see Talib Kweli, was it last year in the fall when he came here? And it dawned on me, I looked around, I was like, holy shit, like everyone here, pardon my language, everyone here is over the age of 30. And I'm like, this is interesting, because it's almost like hip hop and youth culture is it's always been closely connected. But hip hop now is aging, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I would go see the Wu-Tang if they came, Wu-Tang Clan, if they came to Ottawa, I'd go see them for sure. And these dudes are now, I think, in their 40s and 50s plus, which is amazing to see. I don't know where I'm going with this, but do you find, as an MC who's still putting in the work and evolving and like an athlete who's never stopped training, your skills are getting sharper, you're getting stronger. It's not like you're going backwards, you're going forward, you're evolving, you're still remaining relevant beyond that. Do you find there is ageism in hip hop?
Yes, but that's not something that was supposed to be there. It's because we didn't look at hip hop we didn't keep our eyes on hip hop the way we should have kept our eyes on hip hop. Anything that ages, you're supposed to actually pay more attention to. You have a vehicle for a long period of time, it's not brand new anymore, you got to pay more care and attention to it. So as hip hop was aging, we didn't, the cooperative part became such an important part of hip hop that the study of hip hop was left to the side. If you study hip hop and treat it as a study, a subject, right, that needs study, and it needs minds adding to it, taking from it, right, playing with it in that way, but not like just creating necessarily, but studying it, right? The more that we do that, it becomes an institutionalized thing that it can't be just watered down anymore. This is why I was recently thinking, like, I'm a journalist, not by what I studied in university, but I journal every day, and I've been doing that since I was 9 years old, journaling, wow. Right? So I'm a journalist, but the term journalist, it exists within institutions as a practice and a study, and it's not going anywhere. We've had journalists hundreds of thousands of years ago writing down the wars and who was leader and what, we had journalists, right? Africans had oral journalists. We were orators, right? And griots. So same with hip hop. Where's the institution for it? Without its institution that's respected around the world, I know we have obviously the Zulu Nation institution and such, right? But without an institution that's with a study attached to it that's internationally recognized, and it's growing, I know KRS-One has a school, then what's going to happen is we will miss out on, we'll fall into ageism, right? Where it's like, once you get older, there's nothing left for hip hop, because it's really about the songs we listened to at parties and clubs when we were teens, or how it made us feel excited, right? Yeah. It's really just playing with our emotions rather than playing with our intellect. See, that's what I'm saying. So if hip hop was it was attached to our intellect as well, well, guess what? Ageism wouldn't be a problem. You'd see 16-year-olds, not KRS-One, Big Daddy Kane, right in his 60s, right, rapping. And it's the intellect that draws the crowd. When Talib Kweli comes, it's the intellect, because he's grown with this art form. It's what you want to see out of any other artist. How have they grown with it and representing where they are now with this art at the same time? But in hip hop, it's like, if you're 40 and you're doing it, it's a problem. Oh, what is it? OG, right?
I mean, 40 is so young too. You know what I mean? It's you have decades left of international tours and performances. I find with certain genres like hip hop, it seems there tends to be kind of like, oh, if it's not, and it's not a knock on younger folks, it really isn't, but if it's not someone who's like 25 and doing that, then it can't be someone who's 35 or 45, which you don't see in jazz, you don't see in reggae, you don't see, you know what I mean, all these other genres. It's not, in my opinion, it's not as apparent. But I'm just going to move on from that topic. But when people leave this performance that, on the 21st of June, what feelings or question do you hope stays with them?
I want them to question. I'm hoping that they think more about the Black experience in Canada. Our people were attractive. And I don't want to feel like my people are only attractive for the sake of dance or music or athleticism. I want them to understand that what makes us attractive is that we're deeply human. And I remember growing up when I started going to school here in Canada, I think at one point I started to realize like there's something, people treat me in a way that's like I don't have a human side to me. It was either like you got to be a straight A kid, like you got to be like the best kid in the school, or you're a delinquent. You're just the Black kid from the projects, right? There was no gray area. Like, what is this kid going through? Is he hungry today? Is he, you know what I mean? What's his? And so getting a taste of the richness of my humanness, I think it's important for Canada to experience this. Because I'll never forget my first weekend being in my neighborhood in Canada, and a white guy said, get off my lawn, nigger. First week. And I asked my dad about that situation. He told me, he said, welcome to Canada, right? And so I'm hoping they really think like, man, this is what a Black person might feel and experience here from a diasporic, maybe they're a diasporic individual, right? Or just navigating the world is that, this is what it is like, perhaps a peep of what of the Black experiences, because we're not monolithic, but that's what I'm hoping for. But also I'm hoping that people can see that there's space for, Canada's kind of secular, right? I'm hoping for people to understand there's space for these secular stages to have spirit realities spoken about.
Spirit
realities, I call them. I don't call it spirituality anymore. I call it spirit realities.
Elaborate on that.
Spirit realities, the things that are so fine to our existence but are important and we don't often pay attention to. So it's reality, like sleep. Sleep, how important it is to our existence. It's incredibly important. Down to the every 30 minutes, your REM when you get it, but we play with it. So to me, sleep is a form of prayer, because does everyone have to sleep? You have to, or else you won't be healthy. If you don't sleep enough, you'll die because you deteriorate your brain. And when you do sleep, something simple that your body goes to do every day, you optimize your health when you do it. So to me, it's spirit. It's a thing that it's an underlining, what I call it, biorhythm in you. It controls how your body works, but it's something that is so easy to neglect. So to me, it's a spirit reality. And instead of saying spirituality where people start thinking hocus pocus, magic, I call it spirit reality. Spirit meaning a lighter level of something that is real, but we often don't feel the effects of until it's too late, right? Because it's compounded now. So now we can feel the effects, and it's real because reality. It's in reality. Yeah. Emotions are a spirit reality thing. They're very light, and how they control us and they trigger us. It's real, but it's not wood, it's not a window, it's not a cup, right? It's just something that we probably think, I feel sad around the beginning of the new year. Don't know why. Those spirit realities. When you say spirituality, people think Christian, Muslim, oh my God, Rasta. But I want to make spaces comfortable for that. Let's talk about what has us so divided, right? Spirituality.
Ironically. Do you have a lot of dreams? Like when you're in REM mode, or when you sleep, do you have a lot of dreams?
Many.
How many hours would you say you sleep a night on average?
Thank you for asking. That's now 7. Before it was like 5 and 6, and it wasn't healthy for me, but I would still dream. I've always been a dreamer. And so most of my writing art comes from when I have a dream. I wake up and I dream journal. And it's artistic dreams. It's like song patterns come in my head, poetry endings and stuff. So I wake up and I'll write them down. But and that's where I started to realize the better I sleep, the more my dreams come up true, and they they change. The more I sleep, the more I feel like I can achieve these dreams. So I started realizing, what's the point of sleeping then? Well, that's how powerful sleep is, that your dreams are better and now you can chase them better. Sleeping is spirituality. It's a spiritual aspect of who we are. And so I dream often, and I started sleeping better to protect my dreams. I sleep before I go to bed, I tell myself, I'm going to sleep now, Jamaal, because these dreams need protection. And if you sleep 5 hours and stuff, these things aren't right. Yeah.
If your children read this book 20 years from now, what do you hope they understand about their father that they might not see today?
Bless. I'm very passionate. And I think my passion could, as a parent and as a husband, it can be overwhelming, my passion for my mission. And my children, they know me as the guy who everybody else knows, you know what I mean, in the city. I want them to know that I wasn't lying about the things, the spirit realities I was telling them that exist within people, and why it's killing us. I want them 20 years from now to be like, Dad, I see it now. I see it from all the things you were saying to us, and I read your book, and I see it manifesting now outside in the real world, and I see it coming true. It happened to me. When I was seeing things as a kid, I kept saying, 20 years from now, this is going to keep happening. It's not going to be good. And then when I grew up, I'm like, see, I told my homies in the hood, I told you guys this was going to happen, right? And so it's kind of like, I hope my children have that eye of being able to see things come true that I was telling them would happen for sure. And I put a lot of this in the book. I put a lot of foreshadowing of how life can be for someone if you keep neglecting what needs to be taken care of. So my children see me as a dad. I'm the Warner, the coach. But my daughter got a chance to read it. When I got my first author copy to do my corrections to see what it looks like in a physical copy, I said, okay, I'm going to go through the edited daughter, my oldest daughter, but just read the preface. Just read the preface. I'm going to go into the store, pick up some bread. Not bread, because we can make our own bread, but pick up something. I'll come back out and tell me your impressions. So I went into the store. This was in March. I come out and she's crying.
Wow. She's crying.
She's 19 years old and she's crying. And I said, now I know you see what I carry. Now you know. It's not like I might look like the guy who can fight it all, who's defeated everything. But you have to understand, it wasn't easy to get this far. So now when she saw that, I was like, that's what I want my children to understand. Dad wasn't just one of those hype dads who was like, because sometimes I read about parents who are like this, trying to get their kid to the NBA, and they had a lot of passion. They're pushing their children. I push my children a lot, but I don't know if they know it's for a very righteous cause, and the outcome will be better than if I just was lackadaisical as a father. So when my daughter read that, she was crying. She wiped her tears. And she's like, wow, I just never knew that. This is how much you've had to deal with. And that was just the preface she read. So I'm hoping that they get to see the reality of what I've been trying to fight for or engage with my whole life. Yeah. And accomplish.
So you also have another book, right? Like a coloring book, is that correct?
Children's book. It's not a children's book. It's a multi-generational book. I tried to write it in the tone of where can adults, young adults, teens, and children read this and glean something from it? Because I have some children's authors that I read when I was young, and I know that when adults read their work, they're still inspired, and looks like it was marketed for a child, but it was inspirational to an adult too. So those authors, it was Robert Munch, he inspired me because he writes in a way that even as an adult, you can really appreciate the way he delivers his words. So I wrote a story that was based off a dream. I had a dream, and the dream was so real that I woke up and I spoke to my aunt she was passed away, but I spoke to her spiritually. I said, what do I do with this dream? And she said, Jamaal, this is the story, the children's story that you've been wanting to write. That's the voice I heard in my head. So it's called Brave to Be, and it's about my life. Chambers is about my life, but poetically. Brave to Be is an instance in my life that happens so much. When I'm finished the shows, I'm always helping someone before I leave the show. Do you need a ride home? Can I help you with something? I help tidy up the venue. It's one of my things that I do. And I had a dream that I was helping this woman after one of my shows, just navigate some of the difficulties in her life, just having a sit-down conversation. And when I woke up, I'm like, I've never had a dream about my life in mirror form. Usually dreams have fantastic things that happen, right? It was like I was sleepwalking through my life, and I've never had a dream like that. There was nothing fancy about it. It was Jamaal as you are. And I was kind of shook because there was nothing fancy to write here. It was just me. It was like I was awake but sleeping. So I was so shaken by the fact that this was my life. I was just watching. And I went and speak to my aunt, and she said, Jamaal, you've always told children's stories. Kids loved your stories growing up. And my aunt admired the lifestyle I was building. She always said to me, Jamaal, I wanted to live like the life you're making, I wanted for myself. So she told me, write this story. So I just wrote a story about me meeting someone after a show. And she needed a ride home. I gave her a ride home, and I found out what she was going through, and we had space to talk. And that talk helped her children, myself, and that's the story. It's called Brave to Be. It's about that story, your past, your difficulty that you hold on to. There's a meaning for it. All of it. The tension, the wiring that made you think the way you do. There's a meaning for all of it. Once you start to embrace that, lean into that, you mean my dad behaving that way, there's a meaning, and I'm not talking about there's a good meaning for it. And that's what Brave to Be is about. It's like all of those things that make you who you are, they can turn into a beautiful life for you. If you go and seek. Yeah.
The last question for you, if anyone's still listening to this interview, because right now we're like 90 minutes in, and sometimes I wonder, do people actually listen to the entire thing?
Listen to the whole thing with Captain.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Right on. What, and advice is a big word, but I think it's an important one because, you've seen a lot, you've gone through a lot, you are continuously evolving and transforming and becoming, who you are with a purpose. What advice do you have to give to fellow creatives and non-creatives who may be struggling with their purpose? How can they find it?
Great question. Protect your heart. 3 words. Protect your heart. Yeah. I think everybody's protecting something. Like, some people might be protecting their sick mom. So they're going to work with that, like, I got to help my mom, right? Whatever is the thing that keeps you up at night, that pulls you, whether it's a passion, protect it, because when you protect your purpose, your calling, something that pulls you, like, let's say you decide, I want to be a politician so I could change the way people in wheelchairs have access to venues, for example. Protect that, because you could be helping in protecting your heart. You could be helping others in their difficult life. So, like, I have a younger brother who just got sentenced to jail, 3.5 years, and he was a good young man, and he is a good young man, but a very unfortunate circumstance had him in courts for the last year, and he got sentenced to 3.5 years. He's 30, 10 years younger, maybe he'll be 34 this next month. He'll be 34. He's got 2 children. And when I wake up and sometimes I think about the life I have, I get to think about art to create. And I'm thinking he's getting sentenced. He's getting sent to Kingston today. He won't be able to talk to him. His 2 young children, newborn, and another one who's just barely 2 or 3 years old. And I thought, Jamaal, okay, you're waking up today and you're going to keep going on this mission, because when Hamza gets out of jail, he needs help. His wife needs help now. If I keep protecting this mission, economic freedom, economic sovereignty, I can't help Hamza and all. I can't take him out of jail. But I can protect this goal, this mission, passion of mine, and create opportunities for Hamza or support his wife. So when a person takes care of their heart's calling, it's something they know. Like, I think about you and I'm like, I don't know what you do as a career now, right? But I know you're a person who has dreams. And protecting those dreams, that heart, it's worth it. It's the one fight you're going to fight the the most in your life. That one and showing the world who you are. But if you protect your heart, you'll eventually show the world who you are. So yeah, protect your heart. You'll get to that space. I know the battle, the struggle to do that will be difficult, but it's the most worth it one. Protect that. Whatever you think your heart is. For me, the heart is who I am. You know, I've played with the idea, should I be the Jamaal that goes to school and is the English teacher and got his English degree? Should I be that? Everybody would have clapped for me that way. The community would have said, yeah, I wouldn't be a problem, shit disturber, as they say, quote unquote, but I protected this since I was a child. I made sure, when I looked in the mirror, I said, if I change, then pardon me, but I'm going to say it, I said, all the white people who wanted me to change will be like, yeah, we got him to not be the rapper poet. But I said, no, I don't want to look in the mirror when I'm 30, 40, and I changed all sorts of ways throughout decades of my life to fit the mold of somebody else. This is what I saw for myself as a child, to be a speaker, to bring truth to power, and this is what I'm going to hold on to. You do that, it's worth it. You save lives when you protect your heart. Even if your life sometimes feels crappy because you're doing the work no one else wants to do. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Respect. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I'd love to hear your story. One day.
Definitely, hopefully, man, if I can get to them, and share them.
Thank you for listening to Strictly Creative. Chambers book launch and concert takes place on Sunday, June 21st, 2026, at the Richcraft Theatre in Ottawa's Shenkman Arts Center. The afternoon begins at 2:30 p.m. with a marketplace and reception, followed by the live performance at 3:30 p.m. If today's conversation resonated with you, consider attending the event and experiencing Chambers in person. You'll find the event details in the show description. And you can also find Garmami's original interview with Jamaal from a decade ago linked in the description. Until next time, stay curious, stay creative,